We're asked to tell the other side of the story, and so tonight we will. Welcome into my state of mind. I am Dan Yorke. It is an honor to have you watching the show tonight. Gina Bly is my guest. She is she's a member of the family of George Holland Jr. It's a large family, and unfortunately, right now, it's a broken up family over his untimely, unfortunate, and completely unnecessary death. It's a program that it's a conversation that we've been having here now. Probably, I think we've had 3 shows and multiple rundowns as we follow this saga of a now court battle over whether the young 17-year-old's remains will be cremated or buried. We've heard much from the custodial parent of young George Holland Jr., Leah Seaton, who is looking to bury him eventually next to his father, her brother, who was killed by young George's mother, and the mother is in the ACI right now serving that time. It's complicated, it's tragic, but the mom's side of the family wants a bite at this apple to make a point publicly about what's going on, and we will get to that this evening. All right, so tough stuff, and hopefully this whole thing wraps up with some kind of solution early next week, either in court or in mediation. In the meantime, let's go to the rundown. There's a lot going on. Chucky Moreau got a little bit of a break now, did he? This is kind of a funny political conversation. This is just kind of like, what? A little late. And a couple other items that I have for you. Not surprising when you hear the arguments by the Arizona governor. And there are blades of grass out there that can be seen, you know. Let's get to it real quick. We do have some things to cut into here. Cutting in half the sentence. Yes, in the federal court, this is what has happened. The WPRI.com headline on this: plea deal could free Central Falls ex-mayor Moreau. And in fact, it's going to, most likely tomorrow, he's going to be walking from, if the judge approves the case, he's going to be walking from jail. Charles Moreau, who got jammed up for taking gratuities from a friend and contractor who was boarding up buildings. Both of them saw the due process. Moreau got 2 years, and now it looks like he's skipping out based on a previous court case that stemmed from Puerto Rico that has brought some kind of precedent and some nuance on the fringe analysis from the courts and the prosecutors. Tim White had Peter Nerona, the U.S. attorney, on for Newsmakers coming up this weekend, and proffers this for us.
And does that mean, because of the decision out of the First Circuit, that as long as it's a refrigerator that happened after the fact and not cash as a quid pro quo, they can get away with it?
Well, potentially, you know, potentially.
Well, that's something.
Well, it is something, and you know, it's one of those situations too where, you know, one of the things about the Moreau case was that was a case that broke, and we had to go back and build that case retrospectively. One of the great advantages of some of the other cases we've done is that we've been involved in the investigation while the people we're investigating don't know that we're investigating them, and so we have a much better insight as to when the deal is made.
It's a must-watch on the weekend with Newsmakers with Tim and Ted. But regardless of the complications of the legal case, there is no doubt in my mind that Chucky Moreau has, you know, paid the price for reputation. I doubt he can get elected again, and on a personal level, he's got a lot of rehabilitation to do. We wish him luck with that, but whether it's a year or 2, I think it all comes out the same. Next item. What's he going to do now? Clay Pell lost his main man, yo. Yes, Rhode Island Public Radio reports that Bill Fisher is leaving the Clay Pell campaign. Here's a picture of Bill Fisher on his tweetosphere. By the way, he also puts out weather reports on his Twitter account. Kind of a funny aside, the Fishcast, I think he calls it. But Bill is a very, very, very competent PR guy, and he's got his hands in a lot of different tills when it comes to politics around here. But he's reportedly leaving the Clay Pell campaign. That's not good for Clay Pell, because without someone to hold his hand in interviews, I mean, look what he did on where he lives with the Newsmakers team.
How long have you lived in Rhode Island full-time? Have you ever lived a full calendar year in Rhode Island?
Rhode Island is my home. It's the place that Michelle and I got married, that we want to raise our family. I have been coming to Rhode Island ever since I was a child, but I became a resident of Rhode Island in college. I've been a resident ever since, and it's the place that I'm invested in, committed to, and the place that I don't want to see suffering as it is now.
So you have lived a full calendar year in Rhode Island?
Well, I've been a resident of Rhode Island since college, and I'm sure during those times I've gone to other places during the year, but I've been a legal resident of Rhode Island since college. This is my home. This is the place I am fighting for.
Yeah, well, you know what? You're fighting without a PR guy. He's got another PR guy who's the protege of the lead PR guy. But it seems to me that this is the beginning of the end for Clay Pell, and somebody's got to be able to say to Clay, it's okay to leave the race. I'm not saying the beginning of the end for his political career in the future, but right now, this guy is not well suited, he's not well prepared, money cannot buy an election, and somebody grown up has got to say to Clay Pell, maybe next time, maybe something smaller than governor. What puzzles me is that the union guys that keep pushing Clay Pell's campaign are probably going to get Gina Raimondo in a Democratic primary as the winner, which is exactly what they don't want, because he takes votes from Tavares, if you follow all that. Anyway, stay tuned as the wheel turns politically. Next item we have on the agenda here, speaking of politics and pension, she's working on the plan. So this was kind of weird. Today, Steve Klampkin from our radio news team at WPRO, where I host the show noon to 3, was talking to Gina Raimondo right here, you know, the treasurer and candidate for governor, and he asked about the Ken Block plan, which was put out earlier this week with a lot of specifics about the economy. Here was her funny answer. Listen to this.
So I'm listening before I put out my plan, but absolutely will be putting out a plan which is my vision for how we turn around this economy.
No comment on Mr. Block's plan.
I haven't read it, so
Okay.
no.
Hasn't read the opponent's plan, okay, but she's doing all these group meetings as she's listening and taking notes to develop her vision? The economy is the #1 issue, Madam Treasurer, and you're developing a vision? Something tells me maybe you want the job more than you have a plan to do the job at press time. I can't wait to talk to her about it. Next item, Arizona veto. This makes a lot of sense now that I hear the governor speak. Here was the headline out of Arizona. She vetoes the big Senate bill, which was that bill that allowed for businesses to avoid discrimination lawsuits if they turn down gay people for products and services because of religious protection, religious belief. Here was her rationale.
Arizona ranks as one of the best states to grow or start a business. Additionally, our immediate challenge is fixing a broken child protection system. Instead, this is the first policy bill to cross my desk. Senate Bill 1062 does not address a specific or present concern related to religious liberty in Arizona. I have not heard of one example in Arizona where a business owner's religious liberty has been violated. The bill is broadly worded and could result in unintended and negative consequences. After weighing all of the arguments, I have vetoed Senate Bill 1062 moments ago.
National coverage for that local Arizona veto. You know, it makes sense on this level. Broad language, no good. If it was honed down to wedding and wedding services and wedding support products, that kind of thing, wedding support products and services, I think it may have had some legs. But I get where she's going. Although, in general, when the NFL weighs in and says we may yank the Super Bowl, all of a sudden everybody's knee starts to wobble. In fact, the guys who voted for it were starting to wobble and go the other way. It's a broader conversation, though, about religious freedom and whether it has any room to be expressed. You know, when the pendulum swings in this country, it swings hard. And speaking of swinging, yes, Virginia, there will be a spring. You love to see these headlines. Yes, they're playing Northeastern. We've got B-roll of spring training. And, I'm actually wearing a Red Sox colored shirt, just points out to me. You know what's really cool about spring training? College kids get to play the major leaguers. That, I think, is cool. When we come back, serious conversation from one side of the family that says they need some airtime. Stay with us. Welcome back in. Listen, I don't quit on stories, especially, and I don't quit on families. And we've been kind of immersed in this conversation when I was first contacted by one side of the family for George Holland Jr. And I think it's important that when dialogue is requested, we continue the dialogue. And I got a call on this, and I'll explain all about that. Here's the headline that we've been working with lately. The hearing was delayed in dispute over, I don't want to be nonchalant about this, the murdered teen's burial. It's just, there's a life we're talking about here. George Holland Jr. is 17 years old with all of his life in front of him, in the wrong place, wrong time. Here's the package that highlights the story from the last court hearing, which has been continued until Monday.
It's been nearly 3 weeks since George Holland Jr. was gunned down at his girlfriend's home in Providence, but there's still a legal battle being fought over the boy's body.
So I just want this over with. I just want him laid to rest with his dad.
Leah Seaton is George's aunt. She became his legal guardian after the boy's mother, Shayna Rufo, was convicted of killing his father. Seaton wants to bury George with his father, but on the day of the 17-year-old's funeral, Key Funeral Home told Seaton they would not bury George's body because his mother wanted him to be cremated.
Why can't she have her say? That is her child, not theirs. I don't care what the state said because of the circumstances. That is her child. She needs to have the last say how her son is put to rest.
Seaton was granted a temporary restraining order preventing the funeral home from cremating his remains. Seaton's attorney says this case is unprecedented.
There's no case law per se, because this isn't the type of case that's been appealed to a Supreme Court of this state or any other state.
Because an attorney for the funeral home didn't show up for a hearing at Superior Court this morning, the boy's body will remain in limbo for at least one more week.
Alrighty, so one of the players in that story, not that there's a player, one of the people in that story, Gina is here. Gina Bly is Shanna Rufo's sister. Shanna is in jail for the murder of George Jr.'s dad. And Janelle is here. Janelle is Gina's daughter and is here for Mount Pleasant Senior. She's going to be a social worker in college, and she's a good kid, and she is here to kind of support Mom. You hang in there, okay? And if you've got something to say it. But for the most part, Mom and I are going to have a conversation here about what's going on. You called our line, your State of Mind line, the other night after seeing the lawyer for Leah Seaton on the broadcast, correct?
No, actually I called after I seen the broadcast on the internet with Leah.
Oh, with Leah.
Yes.
Okay, so you checked on. Okay, so the timing was such that your phone call came in that way. You think there's a story that to be told from your sister's point of view that has not yet been discussed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, have at it.
From my sister's point of view?
Well, first of all, condolences. I mean, you know, this is a fractured family, but George was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and let's not forget that a life was lost and everybody's hurting here. Right. So let me not be too quick and okay, because I feel for you as much as I feel for all of you as much as I feel for anybody in the family. So, having said that, what's on your mind?
First and foremost, I want to say, it's like they're making it about my sister killing George Sr. It's not about him. It's about George Jr. and what his mom wants. He told her, and I always remember this from when he was a little child, Mommy, I'm going to live with you forever. That's why she wants him cremated, so she can have her son forever with him when she is released.
So the cremation request
was from the beginning. I was at the funeral parlor. And
no, I understand. That's absolutely true. I spoke to the funeral director, and the reason the funeral director stopped the burial process literally on funeral day, unbeknownst to a lot of the people that were there, was because he had met with your sister, George's mother, and she did request the cremation, and he immediately thought to himself, okay, I've got to do that because she's got legal standing, and that's what's at dispute right now in court and will be mediated or decided Monday, maybe. But the cremation part of this, explain to me what she means by that. She's going to have an urn with her where, or what? Help me.
She just wants to be able to have her time to mourn after she only had a half hour to say goodbye to her son that she had for 17 years. So she just wants a chance to either keep his ashes or decide to put him in the ocean, whatever she wants to do. And I think she has the right to do that.
when she comes out of jail.
Right.
So she wants to retain his remains accessible to her for that express purpose. There's no spiritual thing. I mean, I think that's spiritual, but
It is
but
because she loves him so much. And she, last night when I spoke to her, she wanted for me to tell everybody that words can't express the love that she had for her son. And words can never express the pain that she's going through right now. And that she died the day her son died. I talk to her every night, crying on the phone, sobbing.
All right, I'm going to take a break here because Gina's becoming full, and I understand that, and it is a tearful situation. A thought, and we come back. Stay with us.
Gun violence is not the solve anything. It's not going to solve nothing. And now an innocent little boy is gone.
See, that's Gina, you know, proximate to the passing of George Holland Jr., whose remains still are undetermined in terms of where they're going to finally rest, either through cremation or through burial. I just want to keep going back to that theme because at least at that moment, you were all part of one family, that this young man was killed by these kids that the police have now, allegedly, wrong place, wrong time, everything in front of him, with his girlfriend in her home. You were all part of the same mourning process. Unfortunately, you haven't mourned together because of the split between the family, correct?
Well, we were never close. Both sides were never close.
Okay. It's that fractured of a situation. Right. Well, yeah, because your sister was not married to George's father. No. Did have his baby, correct? And of course, the killing certainly has. I know you don't want to make that part of the conversation, and I understand that. But everyone else is watching this, saying, "Listen, that woman is in jail for killing that father. She shouldn't have a right to actually determine where the young man." Is buried. Now, you know, out of the clear blue, this young man is in the wrong place, wrong time. You can't write a script this bad. You just can't write one.
And we have Leah Seaton on recorded line at the state prison saying that she's going to try and get my sister exonerated because they have evidence that she was set up. And the daughter, Candace Smith, went to the state police and signed an affidavit.
Oh, well, see, that's something that I can't verify. I was hoping that I didn't have to deal with information here that I couldn't handle in 30 seconds or verify. That's okay. Don't apologize. You've got a lot in your mind. But I take no ownership of that information, but we will follow it up. You're just sitting here supporting Mom. You grew up with George.
Yeah, he was like a shadow.
Good kid, right?
Yes.
You're hurting
sometimes.
Over this. Sometimes? Well, you know how that goes, right?
He's a teaser.
And he teased you a lot. Yeah. You miss him.
I do.
How are you doing?
Try to just take it one day at a time because he was just a good kid.
What's your perspective?
I feel like that it's not just what he would want, what they would want, or my aunt would want him to be cremated. When he was a little kid, he hated dirt. He hated everything. He goes, "I don't want to be buried. I hate dirt. I don't want it." And then I was like, "How are you going to be put to rest?" He goes, "I want to be cremated."
You've had that conversation?
I've had that conversation with him because I talked to him about my grandmother. She's buried in our family plot. And he goes, "I would never want to be buried because I just don't like dirt. I feel like I should be put somewhere peaceful."
Okay. Look, I know the funeral home is desperate to resolve this without a court order. I know the lawyer that volunteered to help Leah is of good mind and spirit in this and wants to see this resolved to everybody. He's advocating on behalf of the family, but I'm sure would support a resolve. Right. Can you all come together and talk about this?
My sister said if he could be buried in our family plot with my grandmother and his, our other family members, because we have a family plot, then she'll agree to it. She does not want him by himself.
The interesting thing is that Leah's part of the family here wants to take her brother, George's father, and move him from the cemetery that he's in next to George, where George is contracted to be buried. So that's where everybody is. But it seems to me, regardless of that point of information, that there's got to be some ground. Is there a spirit? Is there a spirit? Is there a Lord factor here where everyone can just kind of come together and even though no one really gets along, and because there's been so much awful drama, to just kind of talk it over and decide that we're going to come out of here as one for him? It could have happened if Leah would have just sat and talked with my sister instead of saying, no, I have a guardianship and this is what I want to do. I think I can understand why that may not have happened, though. I mean, she lost her brother. Mm-hmm. I know. Right? I know. All right. We can't solve this here. Do you feel better that at least you were able to come and say a few things here? Yes, I do. All right, listen, the set is not a one-sided, this is not a one-sided program. We've had a lot of people following this, and unfortunately it's a public conversation now. I just hope that peace comes to George Holland Jr. and to all of you. I do too. And we'll come back and talk more about it if it's necessary, but hopefully off radio and television, you guys can all make this thing work. Right. All right. All right, God bless you. Hang in there. Thank you. All right, Gina and Janelle. Sorry for your loss. Thank you. When we come back, your state of mind. Stay with us. I really am praying that these families can come to some resolve on this. We'll follow up. But of course, your state of mind is an important segment here, and you can get in touch with us and what you've seen or anything that's on your mind. 228-1886 is the telephone number, and you see the rest. Here was a voicemail on a much lighter note that was left from Jim Barron's show last night.
Hey, Dan. Jim Barron, he's Rhode Island's Andy Rooney. Thank you.
Short but sweet. Yeah, Jimmy Barron, we got a picture here. He's the columnist extraordinaire and writer at the Pawtucket Times, who was here last evening with a lot of insight on the politics of the state of Rhode Island. I think Jim might be honored by that. He does kind of look like him a little bit. Andy Rooney had one hell of a career. I'll see you tomorrow night on My State of Mind.